Hello everyone, this is Professor Raghavendra Jabak, KLS Kokte College of Commerce, Belagavi. So in the last class we studied internal sources of finance. Okay, so in today's class we are going to discuss about external sources of finance. Okay, now we'll see what is first external sources of finance. The fund which is raised or collected outside the firm with the help of financial institutions and financial instruments is known as external fund. Okay, so the fund which is raised or collected from the outside is known as external sources of fund. Okay, so they are as follows. So already in the chart we studied which are the external sources. Now we'll see one by one with those meanings. Okay, in that first one is commercial banks. Okay, so these are the banks which provides the fund to firms to meet their working capital requirement. They are industrial oriented banks which specially works for industries and provide the different facilities like credit facility, overdraft facility, loan against the securities. So with the help of such banks a firm can raise the fund for short term. Okay, so we already know that short term funds are required to meet the working capital needs, a day to day transaction purpose. The funds whichever is required, that is known as working capital. So to meet the such working capital or short term financial requirement, the commercial banks will very helpful, which provides the credit facility and overdraft facility and also some loan facility against the securities. Okay, by which you can collect the some fund. Okay, next is trade credit. It is the another important source of short term fund where goods are sold on credit basis by the supplier and the payment for such a supply should be made after certain period of time such as 3 months, 4 months, or maybe 6 months. So depends upon the contract. Okay, so in this case the recipient will have time, he can use the payment money for his urgent and short term requirements. So already in the trade we know that cash sales and credit sales, correct? So in case of credit sales the payment will be postponed for the future period of time, correct? It may be after 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever may be, correct? So till that the business will have certain funds in his hand by which they can use it for a urgent and short term requirements. Okay, next is hire purchase system. It is the another simple method in case where the firm can purchase plant, machinery, vehicles, etc., fixed assets in a simple way by paying regular installment amount. It may be monthly, quarterly, or half yearly. But the ownership of the such asset will be transferred only after payment of the last installment amount. Okay, I hope you all are studied regarding hire purchase, correct? So hire purchase is nothing but the purchase of fixed assets like plant, machinery, vehicles, etc. are purchased on a installment basis where the amount will be paid installmentally like monthly, quarterly, or half yearly. Okay, but what they said, the ownership of such asset will be transferred only after the payment of last installment. For example, there are 10 installment. Once you pay the 10th or the last installment, in that case the ownership will be transferred. Till that it will be with the supplier only. Okay, so ownership will be transferred after the payment of last installment. So here another system where you can use for the short term funds as long term funds. Next is fixed deposit from public. Large industries will collect the deposits from the general public and give the high rate of interest on it by which they can collect the huge fund and they can use it for the short period of a time. Then they can return it to the investor or deposit holders. Okay, so in this case what the companies will do, they will collect the funds, okay, from the general public and they will give the high rate of interest and that particular amount will be locked for a certain period of a time and after that they will return that fund, so by which they can raise the funds for their regular business work. Next is shares. Okay, so what is the shares? long-term finance can be raised by the issue of shares to public. Okay, so the rising of the share capital from the public is regulated by the government. Okay, there are certain conditions or rules and regulation to collect the fund in the form of shares. Okay, so to issue the shares to public, there are certain conditions by the government. There are two types of shares. One is equity shares, second one is preference shares. Okay, the rate of dividend for the preference share will be fixed and dividend will be paid first to preference shareholders and then remaining to equity shareholders. And the equity shareholders are the real owners of the company due to their voting powers. Okay, the name itself says that preference shareholders means the preference will be given to first them, means if the dividend is given, the first dividend will be paid to preference shareholders and remaining balance will be paid to equity shareholders. Okay, next is debentures. What is debentures? It is one of the most popular long-term finance source. It is a kind of loan raised by the company from the public. Therefore, the debenture holders is a lender or creditor of a company. He receives a fixed rate of interest on it, and usually debentures are redeemable, which can be redeemed after a certain number of years. Okay, so debenture is also a kind of loan which is collected from the outside public, where the company has to pay a fixed rate of interest on it, and they are redeemable after a certain number of years. Redeemable means they have to return back that particular amount after a certain period of a time. Okay, so this is the another way how to the long term funds can be raised with the help of shares and debentures. Okay, so remaining part we will see in the next class.